It is time for the first of many fall reading videos. And of course, I start with none other than Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. She is coming out with the sequel called Nothing Like the Movies at the end of this month. My friends and I decided to start a book club, and I suggested Better Than the Movies as the first book simply because I feel like it's all around a winner. I don't see how people can hate this book because it's very difficult to hate a movie like 10 Things I Hate About You. Do you know what I mean? I have said this many a times. I was a hater of this book the first time I tried to read it. I did not understand it. I thought it was so cringy. I didn't understand how this was one of my best friend's favorite books. And then the second time I read it in a video called Reading Haley Pham's 5-star books. I was living with her at the time, and that actually is my first reading video ever. And I gave this book a 5-star. It is so well written. It's so lighthearted. I chuckle when I read it. Something else about me though is I hate rereading books. It could be my favorite book, and I just feel like rereading a book feels pointless because there's so many other books to read, and what if another book that I pick up ends up being my favorite? But I don't know because I just keep reading the same ones. So this is the first time I'm rereading a book in years. Literally the only other time I've done this is I think with The Great Gatsby. I'm currently on page 120 and I literally started yesterday. That is how quick this book is. It's so easy, it's so lighthearted. Basically, you follow a girl named Liz, and Liz is a sucker for all things romantic comedies. She and her late mother would watch these together growing up, and her desire is just to have the dream, meet cute, most romantic love story ever. And she likes this boy who was her childhood crush, who is back in town, and she's trying to get him to take her to homecoming. And her and Wes are neighbors slash rivals, so it's kind of enemies to lovers-esque. And they are conspiring to fake date in order to show Liz's crush that she's not just a baby Liz anymore, but she's a grown high schooler. Highly recommend. I hope my book club actually meets. All of my friends and I all travel so much, so I don't know how this is actually gonna work, but hopefully we meet. Also, I just rescued a dog, and that's literally my family portrait now.
Where's Lyndon? Where's Bluey? La 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 la. No talking. Only steps.
You may be wondering, Brie, why are you in Hawaii in the middle of fall? One of my friends is getting married and she's from here, so in between randomly reading at coffee shops and then reading on the plane, I am 58% of the way through with Nothing Like the Movies, and I have to say I'm so glad that I reread Better Than the Movies because it laid such a good foundation to remember Liz and Wes's love story. And I love the world. It feels so fall because it's so back to school and kind of driven around school and campus. Both books are, so it feels very fall. I had only ever read one little synopsis of the back of Nothing Like the Movies, so I really went into it blind, but basically it takes place 2 years after Better Than the Movies, and Liz and Wes are broken up. And essentially you're figuring out if they're gonna get back together or not. My favorite thing about it is, unlike Better Than the Movies where it's just Liz's perspective, Nothing Like the Movies is dual POV. So every chapter goes back and forth between Wes and Liz, and that's why I love Abby Jimenez's books so much. She pretty much every book I've read is dual POV, and I feel like it just gives you such better insight into the love story and into the mind of both Liz and Wes. So I'm eating up Nothing Like the Movies. Nothing Like the Movies. First of all, iced tiramisu latte. Homemade whipped cream. Imagine the taste of that. It tastes exactly what you think it would taste like. Liz and Wes. Sometimes it's scary when the sequel comes out after the first book gets crazy hype. I think sometimes the sequel fails at being just as good. I personally give this an easy 5-star. I literally loved it. I think the reason I love this story so much is because Wes to me is such a good boy. Even though he makes mistakes and he does things that make no sense sometimes, his intention and heart behind everything he does is for, I talk so much with my hands when I'm passionate about something. It's for the betterment of Liz, whether he does it immaturely or not, if that makes sense. So I love Wes because he reminds me of Lyndon. Also, these are flowers Lyndon got me. I also feel like it was less young adult. Like, Better Than the Movies is young adult fiction, and Nothing Like the Movies felt a little step up, which makes sense because they're in college now. It was great. I'm gonna put it on Goodreads now. Do we still use Goodreads? I feel like people stopped using it. Thank you, Lynn Painter. You're perfect. I started How to Walk Away by Catherine Center, and I will talk about that later because I'm taking my dog to surgery. I went into this book completely blind, and I started it on the plane ride to Austin from LA. And who was gonna tell me, no one, that it starts with a crash that changes the trajectory of Margaret's whole life. So I'm sitting on the plane reading about her fear of flying and then how her boyfriend makes her fly because he's a pilot that doesn't even have his full certificate yet. And then she's paralyzed. So you can imagine that plane ride for me. Catherine Center is one of my favorite authors, and this is my third book of hers that I've read. She just doesn't fail to put together a story that somehow is so deep with so many layering parts, yet feels lighthearted. I don't know how that even works. This book feels super relatable. I'm 50% done with it from one sitting, so that also goes to show how much I liked it. Basically, you're following Margaret's POV after being in this tragic accident that has made the whole trajectory of her life. Everything she pictured her life to be is now flipped on its head, and she's literally trying to learn how to walk again. So this quote is kind of, to me, summarizes the grief, intensity, everything that she's going through in the wake of a whole new trajectory of life. I needed to take an emotional breath, but I was petrified to do it. So I spent the day mentally panting, lightheaded and oxygen deprived, with my soul crying for air, but my brain refusing to breathe it. Hello? I feel like everyone can relate to navigating life after something flips it on its head. Everyone has an idea of what their life is going to look like, and we're not God, like we're not the authors of that, so we don't know what's actually gonna happen. I think a big part of life is just having perspective and having gratitude in the wake of whatever you're facing, because everyone's facing something that is unexpected always. I think your perspective going into something can change the outcome and can change just how you operate while under it. And I feel like I'm just honestly enjoying the storytelling so much. I put it on my fall TBR because it's a red cover and I felt like it gave fall. It takes place in March. However, a lot of it takes place in this hospital room, so it feels kind of cold, and I wouldn't call it cozy, but it feels like a book you read in the fall. That's my How to Walk Away update. My dog just had ACL surgery, so I'll be reading and spending time with him. He's right here. Absolutely knocked out. It is actually very difficult to get in the fall spirit when it's 90 degrees outside, but I'm picking up a coffee and I'm really motivated to finish reading this book because I feel like if I don't, I'm going to catch myself in a reading slump because I've really enjoyed it, but the longer I take breaks in between, instead of reading it in 2 days like I was planning on, because I read 50% of it in one day, I've read like 10%, 5%, 10%, so I really need to just buckle down and read. My favorite fall drink is at Merit. There's Merit locations like in Dallas, Austin, Houston. Their iced shaken pecan latte is one of the best fall drinks I've ever had. I got Lyndon and I both the shaken pecan latte. I asked for it half sweetened and then in the smaller cup so that there was less milk. It's so good. I just finished reading this at the coffee shop and I loved it so much. I haven't highlighted a book as much as I highlighted this one in so long. I just loved the storytelling. I loved how it was written. I loved that what you want to have happen doesn't necessarily happen. I feel like when you're reading a book, you know what you want the outcome to be, and if it doesn't happen, sometimes you get let down. It's not the outcome I expected in my head for a book of this nature to follow, and yet it was an insane ending. I feel like this quote shows a huge overall theme in this book. The greater our capacity for sorrow becomes the greater our capacity for joy. There's just so much sorrow and heartache, and it feels like every time something happened in this book that was shocking or scary or unexpected, you see the character development from the initial shock to acceptance, and almost like the stages of grief are just described so well through this book. There were multiple situations that happened that were so unexpected that didn't have to do with Margaret, the main character, being the center of the situation, which I just love when books have different storylines kind of happening all at once. There's not really a dull moment because there's something unexpected almost happening all the time, and it's fun to see resolution that you don't expect but you find so much satisfaction in. Something else I loved about it was it takes place in Austin, and I'm in Austin right now, so Texas isn't a main part of the book by any means, but it's just fun to read something when you're in the place that it's located in. I feel like this is like a 4.5. I really would recommend. I would say romance is a huge subgenre, but I felt like this story was about Margaret finding herself after tragedy. It's completely closed door, so that was really fun. So definitely recommend. Such a good book. I'm so happy with the books I've read over the last couple weeks. What's to read next? I don't know. Trying to channel the fall vibes by wearing this. Hoping the weather in California when I go back is cold, cloudy, and rainy. I love you guys. See you so soon.